start to the program. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Marjorie Flowers. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program, ma'am.
Thank you.
Before we get going, Marjorie, what's the status of the house arrest that you were under as it pertains to breaking the court injunction at the Muskrat site?
I was put on house arrest for 29 days from the 1st of August until the 29th.
Okay, so now it's over.
Yes.
Okay, and you must have signed an undertaking.
And I have a condition that I have to stay away,
Right.
keep within, 1 kilometer.
Yes.
Stay outside of 1 kilometer, outside the gate or whatever, outside whatever area of development there's going on.
Understood. I just wanted to get an update. I couldn't remember exactly what the status of that scenario was. What else is on your mind this morning, ma'am?
Well, I wanted to speak specifically to the petition that we gathered, that we did here in the Upper Lake Bell, but actually all across Labrador. In May, or actually it was going on long before May, but in May that we submitted the petition to government. But it was during the winter months, in March and April, that I remember going around in the storms and in the high winds, getting those names for the petition, and people, ended up having 1,000 signatures on that document. For people in agreement that they wanted an independent review of the North Spur. And that is what we still want. But my concern, I suppose my specific concern this morning is that, and it has been all along, it's not just this morning, that we gave this to government and we didn't get a response. We didn't get an acknowledgement that they received it. And I just want to put it out there that this is the type of response that Labradorians are getting from our provincial government. And I'm thoroughly disgusted and disappointed that we did not even measure up to have an acknowledgement of a 1,000 signature petition. It's very hurtful.
Well, I tell you what, the North Spur has been shrouded in secrecy from day one. Now, Nalcor will say they've been evaluating that particular piece of land since the 60s. And they'll say they've had a review by a variety of geotechnical experts, which, of course, is only half true because those experts have said quite clearly in the documentation they don't have enough information to give it a final green light or thumbs up or approval for the stabilization piece of the project. I don't know where we go with this. I've always been just dumbfounded why, with something that is so important, and when it comes to not only the reliability and the stability of the whole project itself, but then all the lives that downstream at risk if and when the worst case scenario and it collapses, I just don't know why they haven't been quick to say, okay, technical oversight, independent body, here's our plan, give it to the experts, let them give us some comfort that Nalcor's on the right track, but they haven't done it. I just can't understand that.
Yeah, and if they have done these pieces of work behind the scenes and supposedly feel comfortable with the stability, then get the independent review. Show us.
I don't dispute that. Yeah.
That's one thing. I mean, that's the huge piece here is that we need an independent review of that piece of land. Because it's right here. It's right in our home. It's right in our backyard. It's right upstream of people who have built their homes and raised their children, and have their lives already built for generations, Patty.
So let me ask you this.
We're here. This is where we live. This is where our fathers and grandmothers lived. And to have, to have this effort put in to ask for an independent review, that's not asking too much. That's not asking too much at all. That's asking what needs to be asked. That's a request that should have been addressed, at the very least, acknowledged by the Premier, and he did not respond. And I put it out there because I don't know how many people are aware of that. I don't know if, there's 1,000 people that signed that document, and they must have often wondered, whatever happened to that? Because nothing ever really got announced in the news that Nalcor or the government was moving on some sort of a study of the North Spur. And here, I just wanted to put it out there that we did not receive a single response.
Yeah, and that just makes it worse.
We're completely ignored here on a topic that threatens our very lives.
And fair enough, it's a fair point to make. Let me ask you this question, and this will not be well received potentially by you, but when the flooding at Mud Lake took place in May, and the government immediately said they'll bring in some independent people, and in their field classified or dealt with as experts for an independent review as to whether or not the project led to the flooding downstream, they said no, in large part. There was some caveats offered about ice monitoring and the like, but that independent review said no. People in Mud Lake said, we don't believe you. And so folks who have got their mind made up that the North Spur is not stable and will indeed break, what if an independent review came back and said, no, the plan is solid and the North Spur should indeed hold, what's the likelihood that folks are already convinced that it's not going to hold? What's the likelihood of them accepting that outcome?
My God, it would be a little more easy to accept an independent review.
Yes, ma'am, fair enough.
Right now, everything is behind closed doors, behind this curtain, behind this wall of secrecy that we don't have any control over. We had no input into who they selected for that, the Lindenschmidt fellow. We didn't have any input about that. So how could that even be called independent? We're the people. We're the people here with the concerns on the ground. We didn't have any say.
You mean he didn't ask for the local knowledge versus you had some say in selecting this expert? What was the point you're making there, ma'am?
Well, we didn't. We were just told that the premier, the government was going to have an independent person come in to determine if the flood was Melchior's fault. We didn't have any input. There was no consultation with the people. It just went ahead. They chose Lindenschmidt and his group. That was wrong. That's not the way things should be done. We should have been given the opportunity to participate, to have a say, to research, to suggest our own people. But that didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen because it needed to be this way. It needed to be kept behind that wall of secrecy.
Last question, Marjorie. When did you submit your petition to the government regarding the spur?
Pardon me?
When did you submit the petition?
May the 9th.
May the 9th. Oh, man.
So we're 6 months in without even, yes, we received this document.
And was it also done in conjunction with the Indigenous leaders who were part of the meeting? We'll say when we talked about lowering the water level in the reservoir and stuff, did they sign on to it as well?
No.
Okay. I really appreciate your time.
That's an important point that you made there.
I think it is too. That's why I asked.
It is a very important point because the governments, both federal and provincial, are looking at us as if we have consulted and are in agreement and participate with our indigenous leaders, and that's not the case. We are people on the ground with a very different approach and get very different responses from government than what they do with the indigenous leaders. And because they have that little out there where they can say that they've consulted with the Aboriginal people through the indigenous leaders, and we then remain ignored, which is wrong. That is totally wrong. We did not ever have that capacity or opportunity to be involved with the Aboriginal leaders in their consultations with federal or provincial governments. And I will say that I don't have any connection or interchange with my Aboriginal leader. I speak for myself and I speak for Labradorians here on the ground who are in opposition to this project.
I'm glad I asked because that's one of the really strange occurrences here, whether it be about North Spur and the petitions or methyl mercury and the water levels in the reservoir, all the other things that have been brought forward as concerns. So I'm glad I got that one out there, and I'm glad you took the time to respond. I appreciate your time this morning, Marjorie. We are now asking on behalf of you and your group what the government has done with this petition. And generally, when 1,000 names are signed onto a petition, you get some even acknowledgement that they've received it, some follow-up with what they're going to do or do nothing about it. But to just leave it and ignore it is probably going to make things worse, which has unfortunately been their MO for quite a long time. Thank you very much for your call this morning, ma'am. We'll see if we can find out something for you.
Thank you for taking my time.
Take good care. Bye-bye. Marjorie Flowers calling from the Labrador. Okay, it's time for the 10:02.5 news. When we come back, we're speaking with you.
This is Open Line on VOCM.